bit busy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz in the house. That's right. And it's going to be a busy week. That's right. In this house of Tea Time with Miss Liz. We have 6 tea times this week. So it's a full house. So before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all of those platforms. You guys all know all of them out there. Give it a like, subscribe, follow, and get these tea times out, because each of these tea times do make a difference, either with a loved one, a community member, or somebody across the globe. You just never know who's impacting with a cup of tea. In this house, we do not serve a beverage. We serve real life tea. And today I have Charmaine Olivia in the house, and she's going to be sharing about her incredible workbook as well. Pull that workbook up so you'll get to see the cover and all that good stuff. And today's tea that we're serving is fun, authenticity, and curious. That's the type of tea we're serving, and that's Charmaine's tea. So let's get started with the disclaimer and then an intro, and we'll get Charmaine in here and we'll spill some tea together. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz's Tea or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. or check out my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decisions and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Now, let me give you a little bit about today. Well, today I'm deeply honored to share space with Charmaine Olivia Kofas, that the inspiring author, speaker, and founder of Shoes That Fit Her Soul, LLC. Charmaine works in about helping women step out of their pain and back into their purpose, to walk in shoes that truly fit that soul they've been reshaping through healing. Her journey reminds us that self-discovery isn't a destination. It's a daily act of courage, reflection, and grace. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into tea time together with Charmaine Olivia Kofas, a woman walking her truth, one brave step at a time. And let me get her in here and let's spill some tea together. Welcome, Charmaine.
Thank you, Miss Liz. How are you today?
I am well. We were talking back in the studio before we went live, so we got to know each other a little bit. So I'm going to start off with, Charmaine, who were you as a little girl and who are you now?
I've come full circle. So as a little girl, I was very outgoing. I was the oldest of three siblings, and I was outgoing. And for my childhood, I lived in Anchorage, Alaska. And so I loved being outdoors. I loved discovering new things, and it was a wonderful life to live, being in that environment. But I also had an environment within the home that was more toxic, a little bit more difficult. The family dynamic was not very good. I had a alcoholic father and a mother who was very codependent, and so it was kind. I had kind of a back and forth. So I preferred to be outdoors. Now, as a woman, I find myself being that curious person, looking for my authenticity and making sure that I can be as authentic as I can every day. And the older I get, the easier it has become. So I'm glad you asked that question. Because I like to look back and remember that little girl and how open she was, and how she lived her daily life, and how much she enjoyed so many of things that were natural, that were organic, that were things on the outside, but it was also my way of survival. So
I always like to get that little inner child out of all of my guests, because it shows us a little bit about who we are as adults, right? If we were silenced as a child, we become speakers. If we seen addiction in our family, we become either it repeats the generational cycle, or we break the cycle. So just asking that question gets my listeners and me to know you a little bit on the personal side, and that's what I like. Is I like that personal side. Like, you're coming into my home and having tea with me, right?
yes.
What kind of cookies do you like? How do you like your tea? And I like that you use that word authentic, because we hear that word a lot in society, but we don't see it. And that's why I
Right.
like having these authentic conversations with my guests, because we get to see the authenticity. There's no edits. There's no going back and can you take that out? This is a live show. This is who my guests are. And that's part of your tea and your tea. So we're going to get into your tea right away, because I like that you have that word authentic in there. Your tea that you gave me was fun, authenticity, and curious. So that tells me that you're really playful, Shemaine. So you want to tell me why you gave me those three words?
Well, because I feel like it really defines my journey. I thought I was being authentic throughout my life. I mean, I followed my dream of, I went to college, but then I really wanted to get married and have a family. And so I put that on hold, and I did that. And it was very fulfilling for me, but there was still something missing. And as I got older and my kids were getting older, I was on the edge of midlife. I was right around that 40 years. And I was figuring out that, all these things around me were satisfying, but something within me was not fulfilled. And I didn't know what that was. And that's when I became curious about it. I thought, why do I have all these things I always thought I wanted, but yet something feels like it's missing? And I began to realize that possibly I had been conditioned to think a certain way, or I was shaped by my circumstances, and it really wasn't truly who I was. And I became very curious about, well, who are you? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to live the next 20 years the way you've lived the last 20 years? And it wasn't about my circumstances. It was about behaving and being the way I was. And my answer was no. I wanted to be something more. And I wanted to really find out who that person was.
Right. And Shemaine, I think we get in a point in our life where we're like, who are we?
Mm-hmm.
You look in the mirror and you're like, who are you? Like,
I said that question, who am I? And and then I was at a place, well, okay, I want to know who I am, but how do I do it? I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know if there was even a way to do that.
yeah. And in life, we often look in that mirror, right? And we all often look at the reflection, and we have no idea who we are. And I find that once I turned 50, I was really doing the same thing, Charmaine. I was like, who are you? Is this what you want to be doing for the rest of your life? Is this who you want to portray? Like, because society tells us to be one way, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
systems tell us to be one way. And if we come from a dysfunctional family or any kind of addictions or abuse or anything, that they just assume that we're going to be that same generation, right? We're going to be the next generation of
Right.
addiction and abuse.
Right.
And we came to a point, and I noticed this by doing my homework on you, Shameen, is that you got to a point where you said, "Who am I?" And this is where it changes. This is where everything changes.
Yes, I don't know if that had to do with me being the oldest in my family, because I recall, and I pretty much am still the same way. I've always been very observant of things. I watch people closely, and maybe part of that stems from me being a survivalist because I had to watch everything that happened in my house in order to keep the peace. But I'm also curious about people. I look at people and I'm like, I wonder where they come from, or who are they, and where are they headed to, or where have they come from. So I'm always very curious about that. So I started applying that to my own life. And some of the things I wanted to do first was like discern or decide what were my values. What are my beliefs? Do I believe the same thing my parents do? Because I don't get along with them all the time. And maybe I don't think like that. And so I literally Googled the terms values, beliefs, and just looked at lists of them and started checking off what I thought I was inside. And I took some of that from what other people had said about me. People often told me I was a good listener, or they told me that I was objective, or they said you're a good leader, and I didn't believe that. I'm like, I'm a leader? I don't have a leader position at work, No, people listen to you when you talk. People listen. So I took things people had said about me, and I started looking at values and core beliefs and picking out the ones that I felt like most related to me, the ones that I resonated with. And then I took on myself on the task of then figuring out, why did I become the way I had become? Why did I have some behaviors or habits that I didn't really like about myself, but I still did them? Things like not being able to talk things through with someone. I'd get upset and leave the room and get offended or get defensive or whatever, just reacting in ways that weren't aligned with the actual circumstance. I was like, why do I do that? I don't really like that about myself. So then I started researching things about becoming the child, or being an adult child of an alcoholic. And, so I just took it upon myself just to start really looking at those things and becoming curious about how I turned out the way I did, and what were things about me that I wanted to change, and how would I change them? So like you, it was a lot of years of just trying to uncover things and really understand things. I wasn't trying to blame anyone. I wasn't trying to point the finger or even blame myself, even though I did that. I beat myself up quite a bit. I really wanted to understand. And then once I understood, I could begin taking those steps to make the changes in myself that I wanted to see.
Well, understanding takes a lot, right? Especially when we're programmed by systems and by society and by our parents. I'm the same way, Shammy. I don't. My dad has passed, but I mean, I do not get along, and I do not believe in the values and beliefs that they have. I don't believe that we have to stay in that next cycle and that next generation and keep the status and that quota, right? Of this is a broken family, this is dysfunction family. We'll just keep it dysfunction for the rest of the next 100 years, right? I really like the title of your book. So I'm going to pull up your book so we can talk about it and the colors and everything, because the colors are playful. And I love talking about colors. Everyone that listens to Tea Time knows Miss Liz loves colors. We'll get into colors. We'll get into your book. I'm going to pull up your book. But for my audio listeners that are not watching video, could you share what the cover looks like and all of that as well?
Sure. And by the way, my husband is a graphic designer. He did all my design. And we picked out the colors together. And so I want to give him some credit because to me, it's a beautiful book cover. But it's the outline of a shoe. Shoes that fit her soul represents the shoes that we put on our feet. Each of us uniquely and individually find the pair of shoes that fit, but they fit our soul. They represent who we are. And they represent things like around the shoe are the words that identify the steps of the shoe that I created, that will help you become the person you are, the person that you were meant to be all along. It helps you reconnect with yourself and beginning with the soul. So it's a play on words with each of the parts and components of the shoe representing a piece of us internally and how we can grow. And so the outline of the shoe sole are the words like bravely letting go of things, like letting go of those beliefs that you and I were talking about that don't apply to us. They don't serve us. Support systems, having people around you that support your journey of discovering who you are, setting healthy boundaries, effective communication, learning how to speak openly and authentically. All of these things, all these words that represent those steps are outlining the shoe sole. And then the inside, I believe, of the shoe that we have it's on my logo, kind of looks like something blooming. It's got it starts with the heel, and as it opens up the heart becomes bigger and bigger until you're full again, until you're authentic again.
I see that. I see the bottom heart, and then there's like a stream, right? And then the larger heart. So the pushing of the heart.
And then somebody mentioned to me the part right above the heart looks like a bird taking off, like wings.
It does. It looks like a dove.
That just kind of happened. We didn't, I saw it when they showed it to me, but I didn't have anything to do with how it was going to look in the beginning. And then we chose the colors to go with it. And it's funny you say the words I give are playful. And I looked back when you were saying that, I thought, wow, what a great observation about who I am, because I was playful as a child. I was, like I said, curious, adventurous. I did those things. And then I went through my middle stages of life from about young adulthood into my 40s, where I just existed. I just walked through life on autopilot. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have a purpose except for raising my beautiful children. And I loved every moment of that. But for myself, there was just I kind of just was stagnant there. And my first husband, who was just a wonderful man and father to my children, was killed in an accident when I was 45. He was 45 also.
Oh, I'm so
and
sorry.
so that is really that was the impetus of what really got me pursuing this journey in such a serious manner, of really needing to uncover who I was. And in that time, I met my second husband. He's younger than me by quite a few years. And I think he brought that playfulness back to me. He was the rock who really supported my journey. He had so much emotional maturity and experience that I didn't get growing up. And he had a supportive family. So I learned so much from him, but he's an actor and he's a creator and he's very playful, and he does improv comedy. So I think that a lot of what I gleaned from him was bringing back that playfulness that I had once as a child. And I'm still introverted, and I don't like to be out the way he is, but I'm much more I'm just happier, and I have more joy in my life because of that.
I'm so happy that you gave credit to your husband, because there's I have a lot of male listeners that tune in, and they know that I like to give credit to the men as well, because without our men standing by our sides, we wouldn't be who we are. Some of us don't have those men standing by our sides, so we have to be the strong warriors. But we do have some incredible guys out there that are supporting their spouses and their women, and those men need a high five and a shout out and some credit. And I think that it's nice that you played together. to make
Yeah.
this book, because you got to see the side of him and he got to see the side of you as well while creating this beautiful book. Um, so tell me about the colors, because the colors are playful.
I, I don't know there's any reason except I just like those colors. I like blues and I I tend to be more. I like to be very fashion center. I like fashion. I like style, and although I wear a lot of black and white, I accent with a lot of different colors. But I think I'm. You and I were talking about the temperature and everything, and I'm. Although I prefer the warmth, I like wearing fall clothes, and I
Me
like
too.
the fall colors. I
Me
just
too.
yeah, so I think that with that in mind, these are probably a little more springy looking, but I just like blues are my favorite, and then of course purple and greens are all part of blue. Blue can turn into those colors when you add other colors, and I just liked it.
Yeah. Well, Shemaine, when I asked you your favorite color, you gave me blue and brown, and that's why I'm wearing blue and brown is, but
Um,
I can see how you played the two of them together. The calmness of the blue and then the brown, the fall colors coming in. And fall, I find it's a lot more playful than the springtime. Springtime is blossoming, right? The seeds are
yes,
blossoming, they're opening. But the fall, like the urban colors, like the oranges and the reds and the greens and yellows, they just kind of blend together, right? They just make
yeah.
this beautiful apple pie. Like it's just gorgeous.
And it's the tones of them. It's not, it's a certain kind of orange and red, and the sky's a certain color blue, and the greens are starting to. I don't know. I also used to love the ocean when I was growing up. We lived near the coast, and so the blues probably have play into that sense of. I would swim out as far as I could and just be by myself, and I was young when we were doing that. This was after we moved back to Texas from Alaska. But I just found myself finding my happiness and my joy within nature. And I still do. When I'm getting down, I'm like, it's time. We need to take a road trip, and I need to go to the mountains, or something, just to get
Let
away
me go
from.
hiking.
Yes, I need to go hiking to get out of the hustle and bustle of everything around me. I need that calm, and it just brings my spirit back to center and where it needs to be.
Well, Shemaine, we had some questions that came in, and I'd like to get those out to you today during our conversation. Uh, I get some of my listeners to check out all of my guests that are coming in. Then they kind of send me these questions in. And so I don't know where they're coming from. I have a couple of people that send me questions in. Uh, and the first question that I got is, your book outlines 8 steps to reclaim your sense of self. What steps do most women struggle with, and why is it so hard to take?
Uh, I think of the steps that are the hardest of the steps that I have are the soul, the heal. The heal represents healing, and that's the part of bravely letting go of those old beliefs and old habits and behaviors that you were conditioned to believe. I think that's usually the hardest one for people, mainly because, I mean, healing is just a hard thing to do, and also a hard thing to admit that maybe this wasn't your fault, but somebody else um, was involved in this situation, but it created a difficult time for you as you grew older. So healing has always been, for me, it seemed like the toughest. And in my book, it's the longest section because I really cover a lot of information regarding the healing. The other steps I have are the arch, which is the support system, the toe, which is this one can be a little bit difficult. The toe is about really learning to trust your intuition.
Hmm.
It's about learning to allow your intuition to guide you with its wisdom, taking you one step at a time forward. Um, I have the tongue, which represents our voice. Our voice is who we are. It is the microphone that tells people who we are. And when we can speak with who we are authentically, then people know who we are authentically. Um, yeah, I would say that the healing was really the difficult one, and the most difficult for people to figure out because they're really having to dig deep to uncover what it is that they're searching for. But then it's always the most rewarding too in the end.
So you've used the whole complete foot.
Yeah, the whole shoe. It came to me in a dream, Miss Liz.
Oh,
This is what is so wonderful for me is, and how I want to encourage your listeners is that I started on this project. My first husband passed in 2008, and that was the impetus that really got me going to figure out things for myself and know that I can't depend on him anymore. He's gone. The only person my kids had was me. And was I good enough for them? I mean, I was still a child in myself because even though I was a 45-year-old woman, I still gave so many people my power. I didn't. My dad, for one, when I told him that I was going to I was thinking about changing careers, that had begun volunteering. This was after Michael passed. And so I started doing some volunteering to just discover more about myself. And I was co-facilitating these women's groups just to help support them in hard times. And I got me going. I thought I want to be a life coach or something like that where I can help more women in this area and show them how I did it for myself. And of course, I was still learning at that time. But when I told my dad this, he looked at Craig. Craig is my husband now, and we had just started dating. And he looked at him, and without saying anything to me, he looked at him and said, "I knew she'd amount to something because she's my kid." And I was like humiliated. I was like, "What?" But you know what? That's who my dad was. That's who my dad's 90. He's still alive. That's who he is. He's always carried his pain and never learned to let it go. So when he left that day, I looked at Craig and I said, "Why do I let him talk to me that way? I'm 45 years old. I'm my own person. I'm my own. Why do I let him talk to me that way? And why do I let it get to me?" And what I realized that day is I had let him control my emotions for my whole life. Anything he said, I took it like, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's right." No, he isn't right. He's a human just like me.
yeah.
He's an adult just like me, and he had choices to make, and he had choices of how he speaks to people and all of that. And I didn't want to be like that. And that was when I decided, no more. I've got to do some things for myself and figure out how to not be like that. And that's when I started. That was in 2008. And then I went through a lot of counseling and therapy. I did these support groups. And in 2016, 8 years later, I was really wanting to create a program that I could start sharing with other women. And that's when I had the dream. In fact, it was one of those times where I'd been writing in my journal, and I was also thinking about writing a book, and all those years, 8 years. And I was working a full-time job, supporting myself, supporting my kids that were I had one child still at home. The other two had already graduated and were moving on to college. But here I was, and I'm like, I think I'm going to do this, but I'd run out of ideas. I'd run out of creativity. And I pushed away from my computer one day, and I looked at Craig. I said, "We need to go on a road trip. I need to get away." And it was a good time. It was during the summer, and I had vacation at work. And so we took off and went to Moab, Utah, and just had a wonderful time. And when we got back, I was so relaxed. You know that knot you get between your shoulders sometimes when you're stressed?
I'm actually getting that worked on.
Well, I used to get those a lot. I don't get that as much anymore, but I used to get that a lot. And that trip, I had one when we left. When we came back, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so relaxed. I'm just so, and about a week, the next weekend, when I woke up one morning after having a dream. And I know it was that break that I took. You know, we sometimes have to step back from things. And your brain is like, I'm too full, you know, things are going on, you're doing so much, give me a break and I can help you, you know. So that week after we got back, my creativity window opened again. And I had a dream that I was going for a walk with a coworker. And as we got to the front door, I realized I wasn't wearing my shoes. I looked down, I'm wearing only my socks. And this is all in the dream. And I'm looking at my feet and I'm like, how do you forget your shoes to go for a walk? The shoes are the most important thing about taking a walk. Maybe next to your destined or where you plan to go, or what you're doing. But I turned around to go back and get my shoes. And before I got to them, I woke up.
Wow.
And I felt like this has to be a message or something. It was so vivid. I remember the dream was much longer, but that was the gist of it. And I thought, why did I have that? Couldn't think of anything. I got up and I went into the bathroom and was washing my face. And Miss Liz, I looked into the mirror. And as I looked there, I felt a warmth wash over me. And in my mind, I heard the words, you're going to teach women to find their shoes for their journey. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's the emotional journey. This isn't a physical journey. This is the emotional journey. And when I woke up Craig to tell him about the dream, the shoe in my mind began breaking into these pieces. The soul is our foundation. That's where we have to begin. We've got to build a strong foundation. It's who we are in our soul. And it just kept coming out. The heel, we get stuck. We get stuck because we're stuck in the past. We're stuck in things that hold us back. The arch is support. We need support. We have to have support. You know, the toe is leading us forward in the right direction. That comes from inside of us to take one step at a time. The tongue's my voice. I need to learn how to speak, have meaningful conversations, and also to tell people like my dad, hey dad, you don't talk to me like that anymore. I don't accept that anymore. That's not true. Or whatever it is, and to be able to set those boundaries. And then the eyelets on the shoe, they were like the vision, like creating, well, who do I want to become? What goals do I want to set? Who am I? And how do I become that person? The laces came in and tied it all together. And that's the strength. That's the strength and the energy that brings all things together. That forms the continuity of our life, and just bringing it all together. And the final thing was the stitching of the shoe. And I realized the stitching goes around and all over the shoe, creating a path and creating design. And that's our journey. That's our life story. And anyway, that's how those shoes and those pieces came together, because I just felt like those were the steps I had taken, and I didn't even realize it. I looked back on that and I thought, wow, those are all the things I learned for myself to become the authentic person I am.
You know, it's the simple things in life. A shoe, a tea. My Oma gave me this tea when I was 4. And all I kept hearing in my 30s was tea time, tea time. And I was like, okay, I don't want to have a damn tea right now. Like, why is the tea there? And then I realized that the tea was my pain turned into purpose, and yours was the shoe turned into purpose. You know, generational trauma, and all my viewers and listeners know this. I bring this up a lot. My story is an open book because I want people to understand that we all have a journey. We all have gone through something. Whether we write our stories, whether we do them in movies, we act them out, we get into speaking, making workshops. It's all part of the journey, right? And I love how you put all of the pieces together. And I'm a note keeper, so my little piece of paper here got all a bunch of scribbles. But Shemaine, I really love how you spoke about your father, because that kind of triggered me, because my dad was the same way, you know. When I went and got my license at the age of 26, he looked at me and he said, how dare you? And I was like, what?
Oh,
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
But, I was not allowed to be that woman, that leader of the home. So you sharing your dad's story, and being afraid as adults of our parents, it's
Right,
generational trauma. It's
right.
not because we're like pushovers. We're still children to these people, you
Well,
know. Whether we're 50, 60, 70, that's still our parents. So when our father or mother tells us something, we're like, whoa, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, it's okay.
yeah, it's easy to accept that until you realize that they're human just like we are. And there are adults that make mistakes just like we do. And there are adults who went through trauma just like we did. And that's the cycle that we want to break in our generation. And so, yeah, it's hard. I know a lot of that's another thing that is difficult in a stage is the boundaries. Knowing that you can set boundaries with your parents and your loved ones. You don't have to cut them out of your life.
Yeah.
There's just certain ways to create a boundary that's safe for both of you, and also it's healthy for you. You know, we had to protect ourselves. We still have to do that. That's just part of life. And so I learned how to communicate with my parents on their level. I also had to remember that, the trauma comes from something that was traumatic in their own lives. And it usually happens during childhood. And sometimes you get stuck at that age. And so everything you do to handle life's challenges and victories and all those things, you do it as that child at that age. Typically, that's what I have. My parents, to me, my dad was like a teenager. My mom was more like an 8-year-old. And I didn't look down on them for that. I just learned that, okay, that's where their emotional capacity is. It's hard for them to handle strong emotions. When I shared with my mom that I had been sexually assaulted in college, she didn't know how to handle that. And I had waited until I was in my 50s to share that with her because I was hoping it would bring us a little bit closer, because she did not know how to nurture, and her way to deal with things was through religion. And this is not about religion in general. It was the way she did it, and everything that we talked about. The only thing she could come up with is, well, pray about it. That was just her bypassing me because she couldn't handle it. And I don't blame her that she just didn't know how to handle strong, hard emotions. And hearing your adult daughter was assaulted as a young woman is hard.
Yeah.
And so for her, the only thing she could think of was, well, prayer is good for that. But that left me feeling
But
empty.
Shemaine, as we heal, right, as generational trauma, maybe it triggered something in her life, you know.
Yes.
And you had said something a little earlier about your dad's pain. He carried his pain. That's how he dealt with his pain, because that's what he was taught, right? Just
Yes.
be rude about it. Just be cold
Just,
about it.
yeah.
Don't have any emotion. We grew up in that cycle of just that coldness. They didn't know how to express themselves. Mental illness was back in those days too, but they didn't
You didn't
speak about
you
it.
didn't talk about it.
It
Right.
was just suck it up and get on with your life. Like, whether you're having a hard day or not, whether you have depression and not, there was no such thing in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We did not speak about that. And that's why I have this platform, is because we have these conversations and we get down and we talk deep, strong tea in the house, because we have to, in order to break those traumas and those boundaries and those people pleasing moments. We're
Right.
both in our 50s, and and I see a lot of similarities in our stories where our parents were the same, because, and that's why I started off with that question, is who you were as a child, because that's usually where we get
Mhm.
stuck. That's
Yes.
usually where either the best moment of our life happened or the worst moment, and it made us stuck. And that's when
Yeah.
the inner child has to start to heal.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
with your shoe, that's what I see is a lot of inner child healing happening.
absolutely. And that's something for us to remember and know, is that once we become the adult, we can reparent that child. And so when I talk about my parents, it's not in a way that I blame them or that I think they're terrible people. I know they were victims of their own circumstances. But for me to heal from my circumstances, I need to know about their history. I need to know about who they are. And it's not an excuse, because I certainly didn't excuse that behavior. I feel like they were responsible for that, even so, but they were incapable. And so I use it as a reason. I'm like, okay, well, I understand their history now, and I can see how it has been pushed onto me some. And I even was responsible for some of their emotional healing. But we need to know that we are capable of doing that for ourselves. So while I'm parenting my children and learning how to do it without those things that I had learned, I was also reparenting myself at the same time.
Yeah, because we didn't have that parent that had the emotion, that had that connection. And being the breaker of that chain of generational trauma, it is a hard thing to do.
Yes.
And being a parent, not having a parent that gave us those emotional, that extra love and care, how do we give that to our children, right?
Right.
Then our children come and say, well, you didn't do that for us. And then it's just a cycle. It's the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It just keeps going. But I find that when we start standing up and doing what we're doing, you know, Charmaine with your shoe and me with the tea, we're breaking that cycle.
Yes.
But it is proven that it takes 7 generations to break that generational trauma. So that means the next 7 generations have to do the same as what we're doing. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. Because there's always one that falls back into the old pattern.
I want to share something real quick about my own children, because in my own journey, I learned so much from my children. And my children are older. They're I'm in my early 60s. My daughter's almost 40, and then I have 2 sons in their 30s. And I listened to them. I listened to what they said. It was kind of like taking feedback from them. And instead of getting upset with them or defensive or mad, I started listening to them and thinking, okay, what can I do differently? And because I wanted to be different, I didn't want them to feel the way I felt. I kept looking at my daughter. I remember what that felt like. Craig asked me one time when she was in her 20s and I was younger, he was going through the healing. He's like, how do you let her talk to you that way? Because she would just scream at me. And I thought to myself, she's taking out her emotions on me. I love her, and I would rather her do that now and get it out. And I think later on we will have and we have a very close relationship now. And she thanks me for being that way. But I only did it because I was afraid of losing her the way I was pulling away from my own mother.
Yeah, I get that 100%. And some of my listeners get that 100%. When you live the generational trauma, you will understand what we're speaking about today. I believe that the universe brought you to my table. Thank goodness to Mickey Mickelson from Creative Edge, who has brought you to me. But I believe that the universe pairs people together for a reason, to have a conversation like we're having today. Your workbook, you also offer speaking engagements, workshops, stuff like that as well. I want to get back to that, Charmaine, so we can get that out there for people that are looking for some healing. So how can people reach out to you? And if you could spell the website for the audio listeners as well.
Sure. Yes, my website is Shoes That Fit Her Soul, and that's shoes, SHOES, that, THAT, fit, FIT, her, HER, soul, SOUL, .com. And on there, really the website right now is where you're going to find everything listed. I'm also on socials on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Shemaine Olivia, or Shoes That Fit Her Soul. Um, the website is going to have all the things I offer currently. I wanted to say my book is coming out. It's releasing in January. My workbook is already available through my website and Amazon. Something came to mind, and if it's okay, I want to ask you what you think. Right now in a lot of the conversation that I'm hearing, and you probably are too, about the relationships between older adults and their parents, and people are cutting. You're hearing they're cutting off their parents and things like that. That's what I was saying about the boundaries. We don't have to cut people out completely, but it's healthy for us to be able to set some boundaries to begin to heal for ourselves. And so I have to admit that when my kids turned around 10, preteens to teens, I struggled with how to show up for them. And that's what you're talking about. We get stuck at a certain age. And when I was young, that was about the point, maybe a little before, that I recognized that my parents were not available for me either. And so I got stuck there thinking, when I had my kids, I'm like, okay, so this age comes. So how am I going to do this? How do I show them I love them and give them it was very weird for me to do that. And as they got older, I began to talk. We were able to talk as I healed. And as I got through my journey, I was able to talk to them about that and share that with them and say, I'm so sorry. I was not able to do that, but I didn't know how. And now they're getting to see me with their children and how different it is, and know that I have really broken some of that cycle. And one thing that happened to me was Craig's parents, very emotionally mature and have shown me a lot. And one day I went over for Mother's Day to my mother-in-law's, and she's always cooking. She's always doing things. And I asked her, please do not cook today. It's Mother's Day. I want to honor you. I want to give back for all you've been giving me. And of course, when we show up, she's already cooking some things. And my feelings immediately were like, oh, I asked you, because I'm holding all the groceries that I'm going to cook for her. And this was when I was learning to show my authentic self and try to be honest, be vulnerable.
Yep.
And I'm standing there and she's talking about, this and that. And also she made some of the same things I was going to make for her. She didn't know that. She just happened to pick some of the same things. And I start tearing. My eyes start tearing. And she looks at me. She goes, oh, no, 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 no. And she ran over and hugged me. She goes, please don't cry. Please don't cry. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I'm so sorry. And in that moment, I was like, that is how a mother shows compassion to her child. She was more concerned about my feelings than how it affected her that I was crying. Sadly, my own mother, when a circumstance like that, because of her inability to handle emotions, her words would have been, I'm a horrible mother. I can never do anything right for you. You kids just don't appreciate anything. But my mother-in-law showed me compassion and said, I'm so sorry. You asked me not to cook, and I did anyway. She realized it hurt my feelings, and that's what she was concerned about. I went home that night and wrote a letter to my daughter and said, I understand now what I've been unable to do. And that is, I am learning how to show more compassion to you and not always get so offended by things you might say to me.
Yeah. It takes a lot to learn to listen to our children. My children are in their 30s as well, Shemaine, and we've come a long way. My kids were put into care because of domestic violence and stuff like that. So the connection was broken, right? They still call me mom, but they don't look at me as mom. Mm-hmm. So how do you get close to your child when your child doesn't see you as a mom figure? And how do you show your kids that you're still their mom, but They
Right.
don't see you as mom, right? So there's that disconnect. Uh, and I'm like you. I learned how to listen to my children, even when it hurt me. I
Mm-hmm.
just learned to listen. Just sit and listen,
Mm-hmm.
not react. Where in the past I was the reactor. I was like, oh well, you know,
Yeah.
I guess I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing this right, and like, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. And for my listeners out there to just see the openness of this conversation that we're having one on one. But it took a long time to get there, Shameen.
Yes.
I'm 51. It took me almost 20 years to learn to just listen.
Yes. Yes. Because you were probably caught in that same trap of how you grew up, and you were still responding with the feelings and reactions that you got.
And I
Or
still fall down that rabbit hole sometimes. And I'm
we
just like,
do.
whoa,
We
whoa, 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 whoa. Where am I going
Yes.
with this? We've
Yes.
come so far. We're not going back then and there. But I do get to that point where now I remove myself. My
Yes.
children know that. I just say, you know what? It's not a good time because I don't want to end up going down those old rabbit holes. Let's just take a space. We're
Uh-huh.
not getting out of each other's lives. We're just taking a space. We're just taking some
Right.
time to each other. And it takes time to get there.
It really does. And
I
there
love your shoe. I love the shoe effect that you have, Shemaine, because it actually ties us all together, right?
Mhm.
And it shows us generational trauma can be healed through a shoe
Yes.
because it's baby parts, it's the baby steps, everything comes together, it all connects together to make it work. It doesn't happen overnight, and healing doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Generational trauma doesn't heal overnight.
No.
I'm like you. I went and I looked and I checked out the beliefs and morals and values and all that, and I was like, why am I so different? Why do I not fit in this box with this family? I felt like I
Right.
was like this outsider. Why do I have all this heart and love and they're cold? Like, why are they so cold? Okay, maybe if I'm a little bit better, or maybe if I get better grades in school, maybe if I help more in the house, or
Right.
you know, there was always that maybe where I got to a point where it wasn't me. It
No.
was their pain and they didn't know how to release it,
Process. Mhm.
you know. Yeah, no, I want to know more about your book. Like after we're done this tea time, time is just flying, but I love having open heart conversations like this, Charmaine, because
I do too.
it shows people around the globe, not just in our countries, in Canada, United States. It shows people around the globe. People are hurting. People are living patterns and cycles that need to be broken, but they don't know how to break them. They don't know how to set the boundary or put the people pleasing. Like I was the kid that pleased everybody, all my aunts and
Yeah.
uncles, all my grandma and grandpa's. Like everybody, go to Liz, go to Liz, go to Liz,
Right.
and Liz burnt out. Like I'm just like, I can't hold everybody together. Like you know,
Do you remember the first time you spoke up about that? Do you remember?
I waited till my dad died
Ah,
to share my story because I was scared my dad was going to come after me. Like I
well,
was in fear. Uh, I was in my 40s and I could not share things. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of psychological stuff going on in my
mhm,
family. But I
mhm.
mean, we broke that cycle by me starting to share.
Yes.
And
Like
I have family members that are like, how can she do it, but we can't do it? And these are aunts and uncles that are in their 70s and 80s, and they're like, Liz, how do we do it? My grandmother at 86 told me that she was raped and hadn't told anybody else in the family. And she said, Liz, I don't care if you share it with the family now because I want my family to know why I was the way I was.
Yes.
But she was 86 when she told me.
You see how that you sparked something? And just by you doing the work, I feel like when I started doing the work myself, and I was doing it for myself, but it ignited other people to take note of it. And even though, like you said, they asked, how do you do it? We can't tell them how to do it for themselves. We can show them steps that we took, and they take those steps and apply them in their lives. But the fact that they're just noticing it and asking you, that's an amazing feat. To me, that's just so inspiring. And that's the reward, you know, that's the reward for us breaking that. And then our children's lives, and like you said, the 7 generations afterwards can begin to rebuild a new foundation for that family. We are the answer. I love that quote. I don't even want to call it a quote because I'm not going to be able to quote it correctly, but that we are the answers to the prayers of our ancestors. The ones that weren't able to break it, but felt it and knew it was there. They prayed for it to be broken. And as we come into our generation, we're beginning that process. And I love that. I feel so honored that I was part of that breaking of the cycle.
Well, I really love that you said it came to you as a dream, because the subconscious, the inner child, the ancestors all come to us in our dreams.
Mm-hmm.
They speak to us and they give us, take your pain, turn it into a purpose. That's what I heard at the age of 4 was, take this pain because you're going to have a hard life, little one, and turn it into a purpose. I knew that this tea was going to make a difference. I knew that it was going to put me with people like you, Shemaine, and other guests who have come and sat and shared their stories with me. It took pain to get to the purpose. Just like your shoe, it took pain to get to the purpose, to write the book, to find a second husband, you know, because when you lost your first husband, you were probably like, this is not going to happen again. Like, I'm so heartbroken, right? This is not, but you found, you know, you were guided to the second one, and look at, you worked together, you designed the book together, you brought it all together. It's all that full circle. Like you said, when you were a little girl, the full circle, it all comes together. And then we sit back and we're like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, even after all of my tea times, I'm like, how did that conversation come to the table when we were supposed to be talking about this, but we got to this that ended up going back to this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It comes to full circle. You know, we started off with you as a little girl, and then we shared our stories, both of us together, and we talked about your shoe, and we come back to the design of you and your husband working together. You know, it's a full circle. That's just how life works. Shemaine, do you have any workshops or anything that are coming up that people can check out? Or
not at the moment. Right now, we are preparing for my book launch. I also have a digital workbook that is in production, and then the workbook. So we, now that we're coming up into the holidays and everything, I'm devoting most of my time to really getting out there networking before the big launch. And we're going to do the launch. We're not going to actually do the launch of the book until March, but that's Women's History Month. And I wanted to make sure that we emphasize that time. And just to add to your point of the things that happen to us and how we come to find our purpose through our tragedies and through things. I always like to say it's not so much what happened to you, although those things are serious and very meaningful. You know, they have meaning in them, but it's what you do with that becomes the more meaningful thing and the purpose. Because a lot of people say, well, if it weren't for this, I wouldn't be who I am today. Well, some people go through a lot of really awful suffering, and I would not wish that on anyone to learn any kind of lesson. I just think we crossed a path with a very bad person at that time. And so I don't like to say, well, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be this. That is not true. Everything you are is already in you. You're already capable. It's there. Yeah. And we just have to search and uncover it and discover it for ourselves. That's what I want people to understand. You don't have to go through tragedy, but those tragedies can help you learn some lessons or help you navigate your future.
Absolutely.
But I just don't think we are made from those things. They added to it. They're part of our story, but we get to define who we are.
I love that. And that's a good way to wrap up the show. We define who we are. You know, we started off with who am I to we defined who we are. I love that way the end the show. I really want to thank you, Charmaine, for joining me on Tea Time and getting this open heart conversation. Let's stay connected. I really want to know more about this workbook
Thank you.
and the launch. And I love that you're bringing us out during Women's History Month, because we need to start getting these stories out there. So thank you again. Just going to do a wrap up. But Charmaine, do you have any final words before we leave?
Well, I'll just reiterate what I've just said, is that something did come to me one time in a dream. Another dream. I'm a big dreamer, and a woman looked at me, and I was it was a public bathroom in a hotel, and she looked at me in the mirror and she said, "Do you believe you were born to be seen?" And when I woke up, I thought, that is something everyone needs to know, is that you are born to be seen for who you truly are, to be seen and heard for who you truly are. So please know that everything you are is already deep. Everything you need is deep within inside you already. You're there.
See, and this is why we go the extra time, because I knew there was something left in you.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Liz. I enjoyed every moment of this conversation.
Well, let's just do a wrap up of what today was. What a gentle yet powerful tea time this has been with Charmaine Olivia Kofa. She reminded us that healing doesn't happen in grand moments. It happens in the quiet, honest choices we make to keep going. We often think strength means never breaking, but as Charmaine showed us, it is in the breaking that we finally begin to breathe again. So this afternoon, take off your shoes that no longer fit the story you've outgrown, and walk forward barefoot in your truth until your soul feels free again. Thank you, Charmaine, for showing us what it means to heal out loud, and for inspiring women everywhere to reclaim their steps and their shoes.
Thank you.